Yeah, it says this meeting is being live streamed. Does that mean it has?
But I am not still seeing on YouTube, no, so I have to take that into account. Now we are live. Yeah, thank you. So, just give me a moment. We have a very vibrant group of speakers, huh? So they are all in WhatsApp group, and it has become such a healthy space to connect.
So how long have you been doing this?
How?
How long?
What do you mean by how long?
How
Today's
long
is,
have you been doing these interviews?
oh, this is already now 5 years old.
Wow.
I set it on to do in 2018 and actually started interviewing 2019.
Wow.
So
Very nice. Yeah.
uh, it is taking a lot of time. I mean, the success rate of getting somebody to speak is 1 in 7 or 8, between 7 and 8. So there is a good side also that I at least have a list of more than 400, 500 people. It's
Yeah.
just that our time did not match, so that itself is good. We are ready to go whenever you say we can
Okay,
go.
I'm ready, Mansi.
Okay, so let's go for it then. Um, Record. Warm greetings. Welcome to another session of Women in Architecture. And the discussion today is about understanding the nuances of women being in the profession of the larger purview of built environment, and looking at and discussing with women who have started their career with architecture education. This is Mansi Balvarga from the House of Environmental Design Consultants, the host for the discussion and the lead researcher of the study. The aim of the study is to celebrate the presence and participation of women in shaping the built environment, and in the process, add to building role models for the current and future generation. The objectives are to learn, document, and disseminate the biographical journey of women who chose practice, research, education, arts, activism, and a mix of these in a very multi-transdisciplinary and, I must say, highly competitive environment to chart their path. Through the study, we wish to acknowledge and appreciate their contribution in the profession, bring forth the critical points that needs to be addressed at individual, institutional, and collective level as what makes or breaks or tweaks the career of women in architecture in India. It also allows us to understand how women maneuver their lives to find their purpose of being in the profession. It's a call for action to all to realize the need for an equitable and architectural profession in order to advance towards equitable and sustainable built environment. Having said that, the disclaimer is there is no way that we can prove having more women can make architecture for women also better. There is also a disclaimer that the profession is heavily influenced by patriarchals. You may also call it biased, to be honest. But nevertheless, we have already reached nearly 80 interactions, which also gives us very enriching experience. So today we have for with us to discuss the matter, which is by the woman, for the woman, of the woman in architecture profession, Shamini Shankar Jain. Thank you so much, Shamini, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Mansi.
Yeah, before I invite you, the brief biography of yours, I know with such elaborative experience, I will not do justice, but as a protocol, we do a brief biography. Shamini Shankar Jain is an architect, interior designer, and founding partner of Shamini Shankar and Pranay Deep Architects. Based out of Jaipur, her research driven practice explores architecture rooted in place, culture, and materiality. She believes in socially responsible architecture, constantly seeking out alternate construction and material strategies preserving resources, minimizing waste, and building a responsible footprint for the future. Her work champions climate responsiveness, sustainability, inclusivity, and resource responsibility. She is President-elect Triple ID and actively contributes to design education and social initiatives. So, Shamini, thank you so much and welcome to the session. Just to let you know, the session will be more about Shamini, the girl, the woman we would like to know more. Of course, you can paint that picture around your profession, but this is a biographical study. We call it, the method is called autoethnography. So it's your experience, our pen. Yeah. So shall we start?
Yes, of course. Looking forward. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just take it easy. It's a very flowing conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wish to take you back, your memory back to the high school days. And just to understand your acquaintance, the environment in which you grew up, which somehow brought you to architecture. How was it? What brought you to architecture?
So this conversation, this question really takes me back so many years. But Mansi, the school, I am convent educated, and so a sheltered schooling. But more than anything, I had a family with very, very powerful women. They were also decision makers, right from my grandmother to my mother, and the ecosystem of women around me. So I think, this kind of contributed to, this whole idea of, I mean, you're brought up in a women's environment because the school was only with women, but it was such a nurturing environment. I mean, you just went through the whole decades of study with just people encouraging you and seeing what you what you are made of, supporting you and lifting you up so that you could get out of your comfort zone. So we were constantly made to get out of our comfort zone. So my whole education actually was in the 10th standard. Up till the 10th, it was in one particular school where I actually became the games captain of that school. And then I had to shift to another school for my +2. And I don't know what it was, but I became the head girl of that new school too. So you may say that I had a lot of positivity behind me, support behind me, and a lot of, maybe good luck. It just kept boosting, what I'm capable of, and which I was not aware of. So that's my school background. Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, if you start with, it's like if you are in a situation, if you start with this kind of background, I am now more curious to understand, and I ask this to all the girls out here who have been before you. How was it in your education, internship, and very early career? Were you ever made to realize that it is going to be different being a girl or a woman in architecture? Or did you yourself realize it's not a level playing field for boys and girls? Where did you study and how was the environment there?
So let me tell you a little before that. So my mother was a very well-known interior designer in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And she used to have a lot of these young interns and architects helping her with her work. They used to come in the evening. And that was my introduction actually to what architecture was, because these were young architects. And so as I said, we were all, I was surrounded by women decision makers because I lost my father very young. And we had a very, very supportive extended family. So my mother is Sri Lankan. And when she came, she practiced in Chennai. And that was a time when Jeffrey Baba came to Chennai. And they were known to each other. And apparently he was staying in the same building as us. and he was doing a project for Taj Connemara down the road. So one day, there were times when my mother had a Volkswagen Beetle. So she was known as the woman who drove this Volkswagen Beetle. And this tall gentleman of 6'5" or something enter that Beetle and take a ride with my mom when she was going to her sites. So one night she said, why don't you kids come along? Let's, watch this huge art piece coming up on the roof, at Connemara. So we innocently went. And I mean, I was surprised. This was a huge hall, the dining hall, and there was this scaffolding which was just placed midway of that hall. And there was this single man rolling from one to the other and producing this most vibrant, sun and its rays and whatever. And I didn't know who was Geoffrey Bawa. I mean, later on when I actually decided to do architecture, and we started talking about these stories, and I said, why didn't you tell me? I mean, at least I could have shook his hands or something. So
Yes.
it's the time that architecture actually came slowly into me, but also the fact that my mother's cousin worked with Frank Lloyd Wright. He produced some of the finest residences in Sri Lanka, which also belonged, some of them, to my family. So there were experiences where, you would just, even as a child, we would just remember that, there were these beautiful courtyards and these spaces you could move from each other. So I don't know if that was being imbibed, into the system or what. But then I got into CEPT, the School of Architecture, and you are just humble there because you meet big people like
Yes.
and Raje, KB Jain, Vasavda, Leo Pereira. They were, and whatever I mean, you just feel so blessed to be a part of that environment where you actually hear so much about these people and the passion with which they actually did their work. I think that's most important. So that was the time which, really Mansi, I never ever felt being a woman was a problem. Never. Not even in Chennai, not even in Ahmedabad. And I think it was I was probably fortunate. Sometimes they would talk about the color of my skin that was in Chennai, but heck, it was not a huge problem at all.
Yes.
But being in Ahmedabad just makes you understand that there is nothing that should affect you except the fact that you need to imbibe and be part of this environment.
Yes.
So I think, I was so far so fortunate. But may I take you a step ahead? When I came to Jaipur after I got married to my partner, and he's also from CEPT, and that was the time when I mildly felt the whole patriarchal
Yes.
atmosphere. And I found that between the two of us, we both were, because the first 10 years of our lives, I think, as professionals, we did everything together. And
Yes.
I would sit down and think that, these guys, they know I'm talking, but they would actually be more comfortable with him.
Yes.
He would go out of the way to say, she's giving you a point, so why don't you listen to her? So it was a lot of, I think, my partner also he didn't come from a background where women were shunted, kept aside, etc. So I guess being from an army background, being educated at Mayo College, etc., there was a difference.
Yes.
Look, and also his family background. But I just stepped from one kind of family life into another where women had to stand for themselves, had to be independent, had to, be collaborative in your family environment, in your home environment, in your professional environment. So I was never, set aside separately. But as I told you, this was increasingly a problem here. And I would actually stand up and tell these people, whether it was a vendor or a client, I would say that, listen, I am discussing with you. You don't need bring my partner into the whole scenario. It was an initial kind of it was strange for me because I never felt that this should be what it should be. But I stood up firm. And I would also call them on their face and say, if you give us an invitation for anything, I'm equally professional. So you have to give me another invitation. So there were two invitations that would come to us. And where my name was not there, I would not go. Where his name was not there, he would not go. So
Yes.
we asserted ourselves. Other thing we did was we made some ground rules. I told my clients and people at the site that we will not work on Sunday. So we were, kind of stamped as very, very foreign, very anglicized. Because this was not something that has ever been apparently in the work environment.
We slog. We take pride in architecture that we slog.
Yeah. So I think that also in due course, they would realize that no calls will be accepted on a Sunday. So these little nuances that actually you have to set your goalpost, your journey, your trajectory. There are some rules to the game. And you have to, as a woman, hold yourself high. Otherwise, the story could have been different.
So well put. And because this conversation I'm also doing in a reflective mode, and I also share many times how it has been. To be honest, you mentioned 10 years, and it is such an interesting time for a career in every architect's life, especially when we start from zero. I mean, honestly, in my case, by the time it was 10 years, I realized that I didn't realize what was going on. For many, many times, going and sitting in the reception, the meeting was happening, sitting in the couch, and the site meetings are happening, and completely excluded from the entire conversation for which you have engaged. So I think there were some of the experiences which led me to self-motivate and inspire myself to do these conversations, to understand. And so well put by you that one has to assert and put their goalpost in a proper way so that things are done in certain manner. And I think it is also because of the clarity you had, because of the background you came from, and very well put that it's about also being privileged. And it's so nice that you acknowledge that. And we are actually privileged. And one of the major bias in this research is I have reached out to women who are in a way privileged only. So that's a weakness of this research also. But for me, it is important to understand how women really maneuvered it, so that we are also indirectly educating our younger generation and peer group as well. So asserting something was very interesting for me. And that brings me to the next question, actually, to understand from you. And I'm sure you may have also noticed, especially when you say Jaipur and Rajasthan and the whole cultural environment, as women practitioners, somehow knowingly, unknowingly, we have it's a pattern I see from my research. I also see from my acquaintances and knowing many of them. There is a pattern that we imbibe, kind of a tendency, and I call that tendency as a superwoman syndrome. Basically, aspiration to do best in profession, best in family front, and then we are also, because we are so clear-headed and bold kind of people, we also know that what is our passion, and somehow we try to carry all of them together, and that's where I call it as a superwoman syndrome. How was it, and how is it with Shamini in this case? And what are the mantras, if you have to share by this like decades of work, how did you carry that superwoman syndrome or resolve? Or personally, I can just give you my example. I really give damn to any of these things. I mean, I just do what I wish to do. And I think it is because of the age or because of the a pile of failures, or because of the kind of culture and things we go on. But I'm curious to learn from you.
So I don't know if it's superwoman, because I think the women today around me are superwomen. So some of the rules that, I had no help looking after kids, even though my in-laws were around, because we took the decision to live separately because they were very busy, we were very busy. And I thought from the beginning it was a good thing to always, have your own, environments, and you kind of design your own life. And fortunately, my partner agreed with that too. And so I always made sure that my studio was in the house. So from a one-room studio of maybe 450 square feet, you kind of built up, and you now have something like 1,600 square feet or some such. But the studio had to be near the home. So whether it is, up and down or alongside or whatever we could afford. I had to develop my own, assistance, the ecosystem at home, people to take care of the home, people to take care of the young ones. And, so I had that freedom. And also for me to take care of the children, because it was just close by, so they could also be under my call. And uh, see, Mansi, it has not been easy, because um, uh, we started very small. We didn't have any grand, even though I come from a privileged family, it's may not be the same, into the family I came, but they were all highly intellectual people. So that was my discipline from my husband's side. But what I mean to say is that all the women, my mother, my mother-in-law, they looked after their kids on their own, no matter what happened. So, they told us clearly, we are not looking after your kids. You have to figure it out. And I'm so happy it happened that way. So there's no cribbing there. The other thing, so as I said, the ecosystem at home was all set. I had to, of course, do a lot of planning, juggling, because somebody wouldn't come and I had to go for my site visits. So between my husband and me, we managed and we brought up the kids. But there were times when they used to go for their, various activities. So I was the one who used to, go and drop them. So there was used to be through the day a fractured time, which in a way was okay, because after a point, for instance, they went to play golf as young ones. Then I also joined golf, because I said, instead of sitting there and watching them. So in between my work, I had these 3 hours of little extra play. And well, in a way, you may say I was lucky, because I got to design the golf club after that. And unlucky because I stopped playing. But what I'm saying is there are trials and tribulations, if I may say.
Very well put.
Yes, and I think we need to accept that with no excuse, because I feel the moment we start, being sympathetic towards ourselves, the focus is lost. And it doesn't augur well with the home and professional life and the children watching you, going through this. So I think it's all in all a situation where you have to kind of design and prepare yourself for. And of course, I could not have done this without support from my partner, my husband. And but there were many, many times when I had to give up a project because I couldn't handle, and I couldn't push it on him because he couldn't handle so much. So there were these situations, but I always tell the young people today, it doesn't matter, because your time will come. If it is a matter of between your work and your family, your children, and your work in the profession, I think it doesn't matter if it has to step back. I don't know if you can step sideways, but it does happen like that. So this was how it was. And then when the boys grew up, it was even better, because then I started getting into, leadership in institutions, etc., where I needed to travel. And so that is another different side of me, the professional side and the leadership side.
Yes.
So we'll come to that later. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. A tricky question here, although it will be naive now to ask you because you have mentioned quite a few times about your spouse who is also professional partner. I'm just doing the question because I asked to everyone. What do you think, in your opinion, having spouse from the same profession or different profession, does it matter for a woman in architecture in whatever way?
So, Mansi, I think during our times, it did matter.
Hmm.
And I think it has been a great, see, architecture and, is never a single person's,
Yes, it's a
domain.
collaborative profession.
Yeah. So I see, I mean, even my own classmates, I mean, if you're not married to an architect, you have a partner who's an architect.
Hmm.
And it's great if you're, sometimes I feel, yes, husband being an architect, you take everything back to the dining table and that you
Yes, you
know,
eat, sleep, eat,
yeah.
sleep, walk, talk architecture.
If you have that discipline that after 7 you don't take anything back, that's great because then you have a work-life balance.
Mm.
But that was something which was alien to us at that time. But today's youngsters, I learn a lot from them because they are very particular that there is a time limit, there is work-life balance, we will travel, we will spend time with the kids. And so I feel I'm watching youngsters also who are not married to architects or also doing their professional work. But somewhere something goes because they're doing very well, but they're extending their family responsibilities, starting families late, may not be starting families, breaking up marriages. So somewhere
Yes.
there has to, really be a kind of, careful, balance. And I think it's very fragile. But in our case, we expected all that, we said, yeah, it does happen. We will do it. We never questioned. And, we just took it as it came. But I
As
think
it came.
having a spouse, yes, having a spouse as your collaborator, as your partner, I think it has a lot of advantages. I do not want to say that it means that without a spouse or a partner you cannot excel, because
Absolutely not.
that's
Yeah.
the greatness of today's women. Actually, many of them are doing so well.
Yeah. You know, why I framed this question was the reason, as I said, one of the presumption we took in this research is that the profession is patriarchal. A majority of practitioners were men. But there was also something very interesting which I found out by, I mean, not written in terms of statistics, but just by personal search, number of times to many of the famous male architects, not only in India, but around the world. The fact that most of them had either their spouse as from the same profession or the leading architect who was a woman. So, and I had this question all the time in my mind: what happens to those women when the man is getting all the acknowledgement, appreciation, fame, name, whatever you may call it? There is something lost in loss of identity and acknowledgement of the true potential. So that is why this question.
No, but I appreciate this question because it does exist today. I have heard of a few practices where there are husband-wife collaborations. I have heard of the fact that the woman is looked at as an interior designer and the man is looked at as an architect, even though the woman is an architect and an interior designer. So there are these biases still. And I mean, going back to your question, women have to assert themselves. Women have to find their voices. Women have to, if a leadership role is given to you, that means somebody has seen something in you. And, I think at our times we would shy away, and say, okay,
Yes.
on when it comes. But now I see the younger women actually getting groomed for leadership, which is a very positive sign, I have to say. And, we have a large number of institutions, coming back to institutions, really. And I find a lot of young women actually coming forward to be, part of the committee engagement for these institutions. And
Yeah,
I think it
absolutely.
starts from there. So it is not in our times, it was mostly about our work and our family. But now it is work, family, and moving out to do beyond. So I think
Yeah.
there is a change in that sense, amongst women's voices. I'm not saying we have reached, I mean, I'm not, coming to a point where we're saying we want equality or something. I think we are very good.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to be a little more strong and forthright. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another interesting and tricky question comes with the idea of having spouse or knowing someone as a partner, uh, uh, as a male. Uh, would you think?
I want to come in here one thing.
Go ahead.
You learn a lot from your spouse. I mean,
Absolutely.
discipline comes in, the vision comes in. It's not just one person's, kind of vision, but it is a shared vision.
Yes.
And you also learn that to be able to be accommodative and adjusting, which I think is an essential thing today in any practice.
Yes.
Beyond just the idea of, okay, the spouse is there and, he takes on the leading role and stuff. I don't believe in that. So please go ahead with your question.
Yes. So my next question is about the approach to design and approach to business, because architecture practice and success of the practice also depends on the business acumen. Do you see a difference in the way a woman approaches or a man approaches? If you take your example of your acquaintances, could you share some light on that?
Yes. Mansi, I think what is important is that there today are many women run and women-led design practices that also have to take care of the business aspect of it.
Yes.
My take here is that when I got into practice, when we got into practice, our focus was wiser, like, just
Yes,
concentrate,
yes.
do a
I think that's
good
how
job.
it is.
Yeah, do a good job. And
And
we were so socialist and idealistic, and we still are in the way we look at things. And, so don't look here and there, because you don't want to know who's doing better than you or who's earning better than you. Don't get distracted. Just go this way and build upon yourself, evolve yourself, do the best you can, and be the best, voice for whatever in architecture it can be, whether it's detailing of architecture, understanding architecture, teaching architecture. So that was the way, it goes. And therefore, I felt that I was like that till I came in, as I said, to the institutional leadership, where it actually went, wider than that. So I think I would call myself, at one point, I was a very poor negotiator. I think I may
it is
still
coming
be.
out very clear amongst most of the conversation. So see, these are the patterns as a researcher I'm looking at. No? So then we know where do we have to invest more.
So I have learned that it's not just about your work you have to be, careful about. You have to negotiate your price with your client, because that shows your own value. If you take it because you want the job and he says, okay, instead of 5 rupees, I'll give you 3 rupees, and then you grab the job, I feel I am reducing my value for my work and for the, my brain power, because I believe that if you do good projects, that itself speaks. And if you have good relationships, you don't have to go out of the way. This is my belief, which now may have changed because there are a lot of, as I said, there's many generations between me and today.
Yes,
which have
absolutely.
evolved in different ways and very nicely, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of learnings. But at the same time, I think one more thing I need to tell my young ones, young architects, my fellow architects, and all of us is that we need to understand our own value. So get projects where you can demonstrate your value and it is returned to you in the manner that you know, have to negotiate yourself up to. So I think this is very important, and I'm learning, yeah.
We are all learning through it because
Yeah. So
it's a very common pattern that comes out, especially fees negotiation, handling
this,
the
yes.
dominant male developer, contractor, material supplier, labor is still dominated by
So this
males.
is where you learn a lot from your male counterpart.
Yes.
That is what I mean to say, because, or you know, I mean, this is what my belief. I mean, I have actually learned a lot this way.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
That brings me to a question about leadership, or we can call it, I mean, slash being successful. And I know people like you who have gone into leadership, activities also makes a difference in the way you manage your practice or your educational activities. What we have seen is in terms of numbers, many women have chosen to do academics, do research. They have diversified from the very so-called practice, and that is where also we see not there are not many women who are seen as architects. I'll give my example as well. I mean, I have been working on water issues for last decades. And many of even my architects friends don't know that I'm an architect, for example, because unfortunately, still water is not part of architecture, which is the most unfortunate part.
Yeah.
And I have been fighting this battle that water is part of architecture and
Yes.
fighting a failed battle. So that's okay.
Uh-huh.
The point I'm trying to know from you is the study tells that women have diversified into many various aspects. When I was going all over the country and asking people, give me names of 5 most successful women architects, 10 most successful women architects, or just not successful. Give me 10 names from your city. Not to my surprise, and this is also one of the pillars of this research as foundation. Uh, Students and teachers will struggle to name their own teachers as architects, even though they have studied architecture. So I started questioning the very definition of architect. Who is an architect? Only those who practice? What happens to people like us who do research? What happens to people who are into academics? How do they fall outside the bracket of so-called architects? And that also helps me to understand that many women have diversified, and that is where they are not also in that list of successful or well-known women architects. I want to know from you and learn, why do you think there are not so many successful women architects? Is this question wrong to ask? Am I naive or ignorant about it? Or there is really a shortage of very well-known, successful architects in the country? What's your take on this?
So I am not sure how you evaluate success.
Yeah, unfortunately, success itself is a masculine definition. But at least students should be knowing, we should be studying about them in the books. So I just want to add one more anecdote here that I actually started doing the research after Madhvi Desai's book came out.
Yes.
Madhvi was our 75th speaker.
Yes.
Because for almost 10 years, I had in my mind to do this research. And
Yes.
importantly, because I was going through that struggle of looking for who am I, uh, being actually with a spouse of same profession and still struggling. So it's we are all have different planes and reference
Yeah.
points, and
Yeah.
also knowing some of the very well-known architects whom I appreciated a lot, knowing that I didn't even know their wives' names and who are running the offices. If they don't run the offices, these male cannot do anything outside. And
Absolutely.
I have also experienced it for more than 10 years in my life. Not that I'm saying that I was important in the office, but then you are instrumental, but you are kind of a shadow or a ghost, or you are not there. And if I look at from that point of view, there are many unknown women who maybe they have personally
True, true.
chosen that role. It's a personal choice, and I did have some argumentations with some of these women. It's their choice. So how do they want to take their life? And absolutely, so deep respect for them. But as a researcher, when I'm taking a bird's eye view and looking at the pattern, I see that many women who would have been role models and successful and may have normalized in the society that yes, women architects are also practicing well, they are well known, they can be done. I see there has been a huge gap, and I do not wish to blame them, but indirectly I also feel that women who have not disseminated their work, not made their identity visible, not made themselves famous, knowingly, unknowingly, is also a disservice to the society. I may be very, very direct in this, because we are not paving path for the future generation. When I started my career, I only knew Didi contractor. Then by the time internship and getting little exposure in Ahmedabad, I came to Ahmedabad for it. Then I got to know a few more. I worked with Meenakshi Jain, so that was already a
Yeah,
privilege
yeah,
for me
yeah,
to
yeah,
know KB Jain and Meenakshi Jain together. For me, they are still my ideal role models.
yeah.
Then you expand, but not that we were studying in all our books everywhere. All the master architects were male. So when Madhvi's book came out, then I knew that there are such wonderful contributions made by women. But that also helped me to get a clarity that what I don't want to do in my research. So I am not taking the same trajectory as Madhavi's. I
Yes.
am doing biographical study, not architectural study. So again, back to you. So what do you think? Why are women not so well known in the society in architectural practice?
So, again, that is a fault line, and I
Okay.
would say I'm also part of that fault line because
Hmm.
I used to look at my work and appreciate some things I did, and I would say, okay, it's too time consuming to even get onto a public domain.
Yes. That's also which I come out very clearly.
So after a point, you realize when you look back at the plethora of work that you have
Hmm.
done,
Hmm.
the palette of work, you understand that, why is it that you are not showing this out? Because there
Yes.
are certain things that, reflect, the practice, reflect
Hmm.
your way of looking at things. And, but you still think that, women architects or any architect who comes in the public domain has to have huge projects. And this is
Hmm.
validated so much
Very well
by
put.
the awards or by
Hmm.
the, when you're invited on stage to present your work, or, so it is all about scale. And with scale comes this whole, personality, flush that, you are larger than, life. So
Hmm.
if one starts developing yourself in that, kind of line, uh, maybe people, of our generation, could have projected ourselves. But let me tell
Hmm.
you, things are changing. Because
Absolutely.
we have lots, like we have Wade Asia, we have Wiki, which is a women's
Yes.
Indian Chamber of Commerce Architecture Council. These are all conglomerates of women.
Yes.
And we are all able to understand now, especially from the younger folks, that
Yes.
you do a good job. See, we are not looking of mediocrity, and I think a
Mm.
lot of it is mediocrity. But if we can recognize somebody who's done something, and if that person is also able to recognize that there is something that he or she has done, then it is time now to say that, listen, you share your voice on the platform. Let us have a look. And we have to turn around and say, we don't care about the scale of the project, about how you have actually, I mean, what you have done for this project, what you have done for the people, what you have done for your community. What is it that is so special about this that you want to share? You don't want to share every part of your work, because some things are just not worth sharing. Some projects are not projects that you can put out in the public domain. There are projects each and every one of us is doing that, can say that, and then people will decide whether this person is actually doing work. And, then that whole thing, that whole effect, it's a snowballing effect after that. So I
Absolutely.
think, Mansi, in about 5-6 years, you will change your mind, because
That's for
generations
good,
before
I
you
think.
and me are a lot more effusive on this aspect. And
Oh, absolutely.
they're doing
You,
fantastic work, but they're
yeah, and you put it rightly. And to be honest, when I started now doing this conversation, even if we are only 80 conversations old, the fact is that now I have list and biography or work of nearly 400 women. That already speaks volumes. It's not that they have to come to this platform, but just that I could learn about 400 women doing exemplary, 400, 500, actually it's more than 400, not touched 500 yet, that they are doing exemplary work itself is an achievement of this research. So it's not that only we making video and chapterization of all of you.
yes.
But interesting is also these associations, councils, conglomerates also helps in hand holding, collaboration, leadership, and definitely, and it has helped. And when we started, we were unaware of these things. These things were not existing in 1995, 96, and these are certain, I think, definitely positive changes we see in the society and in the profession, definitely. We are actually very close to asking just few more questions, but I see quite a few people are here, and also there are people in the YouTube. So warm greetings to people also on YouTube. And maybe this is also an time that I request any one of you, or if you have any questions or comments for Shamini or for me or about this research, you may actually join us in this conversation. We will be very glad. If you need some time to prepare, do that. I will also check from YouTube if you can also put your post there, question in the chat box. And meanwhile, I will continue with the questions. If there is anyone in Zoom who is ready with a question or comment, you can go now itself. Otherwise, after my next question. Okay, I will ask my question. Let people take their time and think what they would like to interact with you. It's a very simple question, and actually, usually I ask it when I'm asking the superwoman syndrome and all, but we were flowing in a different conversation. Certain decisions Shamini made in her personal life or professional life, which shaped her what she is today. What will be those? Because we are always at this trajectory where we have to choose some things.
So where I am today, okay, so my work goes on, and
yes.
So there's nothing exemplary or different in the way the trajectory has gone. But as I said, there are places where people see you and put you in the forefront. So let me tell you my journey of the institution. So sometime mid, I think 90s, I was asked to stand for election at the IIA Rajasthan chapter. And I sent in my form, and they said they will put in 2 names for proposing and seconding. And then they said, come for the installation. And when I went for the installation, I saw my name was not there. So I
Oh.
said, okay, now what's up? So they said, oh, somebody forgot to second you.
Wow.
So I was so upset because I said, well, this can only happen if you're a woman. And
Yes, yes.
I said, well, I just stormed out and I said, okay, maybe it's good because I could get back into my comfort zone of working and stuff like that. But it wasn't a woman thing because my place was positioned and taken over by another woman. I was a private practitioner. She was from the PWD. So it was okay. It was not a woman thing. It was a decision and it was a, whatever you may say, foresight, aftersight, what intentional sight, whatever. So I came back. That was one. In 2008, I was supposed to, we started the IIID in Jaipur. And when the chairman, the ad hoc chairman, he wanted to form his team. And he said, you're going to be my honorary secretary. And I said, well, I have no, So, okay, I was honorary secretary. And it was a fantastic team. My journey with working with people beyond, beyond the professional life started there. But it so happened that we had, some rumblings after some time, and I got out. And I did not, at any stage, take on the leadership role as chairman of JRC for whatever reasons. That is a separate story. And again, I went back to my office and I said, okay, now let's start concentrating. Comfort zone. So don't bother about what happened.
Yes.
Started working. Then in 2015, I get a call from the president of IIID saying, we'd like you to join us as an editor of our national magazine. I said, okay, you write well, so we would like you to to be part of it. And fortunately, at that time, we had an NEC member from Jaipur who was media in charge. So I was supposed to assist him, and it went very well. That was okay. The following term, again, I was called and I was co-opted into the NEC. And that was very nice. It was perfect. The third term, again, with a new president, I was called. And she said she was the first woman president of the team of the IIID. And she said, would you like to take on the editorship of this magazine again? And so I thought about it, and maybe after maybe a few days, I took it over. And that was another wonderful experience in my life at IIID. And that was it. So every term finishes and you put in a report and bye-bye. Then comes the president, who is today the president, and he, after COVID, because COVID, there was a tumultuous time also, that will you stand for election, the national executive election? So I said, who will know me? I mean, if I stand, if I don't win, I must win. So I had all these background in me.
Yes.
And so my family said that, you have been supporting what is right. And, during this tumultuous time of IIID. So when they are asking you for help, you must think about it honestly and go in for it. So I said, okay, I'll stand for it. And I stood and I won. And then he says, you are the honorary secretary. So I said, okay, here I was thinking that I'll just be one cog in the wheel to go as honorary secretary, worked in that position under wonderful veterans. And and then following term, then he proposed my name as president-elect, which was,
Yes.
so that is my journey. Every time I was supposed to go somewhere, I had to go back. Then go forward, don't go back. Go forward, go back. So it's okay. I said, it's fine.
Life also.
Yeah, and it gave me more time with my work. And, I just developed that little repertoire of work that was very important to me to develop. So, yes, so that was where I am today. Yeah.
Yeah. You brought triple ID into discussion. So I must share with you and everyone here that just this week I was asking to all the girls who are our past speakers that if there has been any woman president in Council of Architecture and IIA, and so far no. And now in forthcoming IIA, there will be one first woman to be nominated and for the election. So when we talk about leadership, we are actually talking about two-pronged leadership. One is, of course, your own work, but another thing is also that the profession needs us our service in making the profession visible to everyone, because architecture profession is still not a known profession in terms of being community, doing community architecture, doing where architecture is required. It is still a niche profession where people are looking for making, as you rightly said, big projects, monuments, masterpieces. We are still not that in that space of doing community architecture and making cities beautiful, functional, sustainable. We are still not there. People are doing at their individual level. And that's where I see a huge role of these larger bodies of organization where they can actually have a say also in the policy and in the with the government to make changes in the way cities are designed and planned. That brings me to the penultimate question, actually. And it's about a hypothetical situation either in the past or in the future. And not that I wish that day to arrive, but I just made this question for fun and also to imagine a situation. Imagine all the well known architects, all the big projects of the country are dealt by well known women in architecture. Do you think there will be a change in the way buildings, communities, societies, uh, residential, institutional campuses, and cities, they will look different than the way they look today?
So I don't think, Mansi, that women architects make things more beautiful,
Okay,
make things more feminine.
okay,
It is not about that. I think
yes.
women architects make lived experiences very, very different. And when you actually take into this conversation about what it is that they see that is important to a built environment or a building, etc., I think to understand that the brief changes and the architecture changes. So I think it is not about merely women architects. Women architects, I mean, I think there are many phases to what we as women look for. For instance, you look at experiences. We want daily life to actually be, part of our designed experience. For instance, we want eyes in a street because we want safety. So maybe when we design, we will design with a different kind of perfection. We want safety for our elderly people, for our children, for our single women who can sit in open space and feel safe. So we may look at that differently. We may look at mobility issues differently. We may look at, more not so much in terms of economics and efficiency, but about, how things work with nurturing, with community, with care. So these are added things that would work in a scenario of how architecture works in a way. So I feel it is not about women architects doing better, but it is definitely about the voices of women architects that in collaboration definitely enhance the entire experience, the lived experience. So this is my take, and this is what I wish, that all of us women have voices, all of us women have decision-making strengths, and we want to make those decisions. And this is actually what I want to say when we actually talk about women architects. So it's just an enhancement of how and a deep sense of what we think is more important. But that doesn't go to say that there are male architects who are not sensitive. But I think ingrained in us or within our DNA, we look at nurturing, care, community as something very special to us. And that's what makes the brief different. Yeah.
That will be also reflected in the profession, or that's a different.
Absolutely.
But can you give me some idea, as in physical terms, what kind of difference will you see?
So I will see, for instance, transition spaces. Now, when I shift out of a building, I don't want to get straight onto a street. So I would like to have that threshold or that transition space, which has been designed for stepped care. You know what I mean? For movement, for shade, for sitting and enjoying whatever I am. I would like to see that staircases in public spaces are not cloistered in one corner. So perhaps I would have a staircase and the elements of circulation somewhere where I feel safe. You know, there are malls I get into where I just don't like the idea of, going towards a corner and climbing up. So things like that. And also, yeah. So I feel that, and we understand we have aged parents, especially in our country. We cannot take our aged parents in wheelchairs out, not even our specially challenged, able children. There are a whole lot of problems. So I feel these things can change, but I'm not saying, it's
it will change. Of course not. Even I am not imagining this day to arrive. Because then also we have the same problem as we have today. So that brings me to my last question, which is a very simple question. But let me ask one more time, if there is any question from the participants here and also on YouTube. I don't see any chat question in the YouTube, but in Zoom, if you have any question to ask Shamini or to me, you may please do. Preeti, please go ahead, and please, may I request you to also open your video so that you are visible to us. The conversation is better. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Preeti.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mansi. Hi, Shamini. It's been a wonderful conversation. And I'm so glad, Mansi, you're putting this, this entire, I love the idea of making it biographical. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank
Because
you.
even a library of such compilations it will be a beautiful way forward, even for the girls for the women who are coming in the future into the profession. It is almost like an archive of a human library, um,
Yes.
which comes to me as an amazing idea. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And me and
May I
Shamini
just
have.
add a line here, because you talked about women. Actually, it is for me personally, it was also for all the boys and men, so that
True.
they normalize it, that women are doing equally well and they don't have to look for a male boss.
Yes, it has to be now.
Or a male HOD or dean or director,
But may I introduce Preeti?
Go ahead. Yes, please.
She's president of the Wiki Architecture Council. That's the Women's Architecture Council of Rajasthan. And she's also a practitioner and an academician. So,
yes, so Preeti, a date, please. Thank you, Shamini. Preeti, why don't we have you yet? That's a question I must ask.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have been doing snowball sampling. So one person is recommending another. So go ahead, Preeti. Sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No problem. So thank you, Shamini, for introducing me here. No, you're right. Actually, as a library, this goes even for the men, and thankfully, even if I can take absolute pride in this, we are the mothers who are bringing up better men to the world right now.
Yes.
And our boys are being far more empathetic. At the risk of saying this, more than our husbands are. We can't blame their mothers for it, but
you nailed it, to be honest. And honestly, these conversations have been candid here. So just go ahead.
I know. I mean, I'm known for.
That's not my story. Okay. Please
not your story. Yeah, I'm sometimes pretty famous for putting my foot in my mouth, but I kind of I own it up. I'm fine with that. But today's conversation actually, me and Shamni have a lot of conversations on this leadership, on community building, being leaders in an organization. And today, something that Shamni said just started a thought for me. Even whether we talk about politics in general, or whether it's organizational politics, somewhere we women do struggle because of our psyche to have, how should I put it, an edginess that politics asks for. the kind of edge that we may not inherently be comfortable getting into or dealing with. Does that somehow create, that gap? Despite the fact that we are capable, despite the fact that we may be able to deliver better, despite the fact that our visions are better,
Yes.
is that a big speed breaker to our being in places of position, especially where organizational politics comes into play?
So you want me to answer that, Preeti, or
Go
Mansi?
ahead, Shamini.
It's a conversation. I think either of
Go
you,
ahead.
both
We both
of you.
can respond after
Yeah.
you.
Mansi, you answer, because you have spoken to so many, and then I will come in after that if you want to.
I think I will actually reserve the question in a way. I have yes and no both to respond here. What I learned from the literature and also learning from others' work and all, I find both the things. A woman, at the end of the day, we also need our peace. So many a times we are in that submissive mode because we have to move on. And if you recall, I was asking a question about how do we balance or maneuver our personal, professional, and passion is something which is left behind by many women, and probably we may be few of us who will be really lucky or very adamant to carry all of them together. So one thing is that we submit very easily for the peace of mind, and there is so much on the plate that we have to find out. And I think another thing is that patriarchy is so naturally ingrained in our lives that we think that it is okay to flow with it. And we are also in that constant state of prisoner's dilemma. My change will not bring a change. I'm a hardcore microeconomist fan. I mean, having done my own MPhil also in economics, I feel that in a way it is a disservice in the longer run. Maybe you buy your own peace. You buy peace for the family and your acquaintances and your office. But in the long run, it is a disservice. The fact that most of the women, I feel, from my generation and the generation before, did not took the pain to document their work, disseminate, publish, write, is the reason why we don't study their work. How many times we have studied Madhvi Desai's work? How many times we have studied Meenakshi Jain's work in our books, And it is not that only others are going to write. We also have to take the pain to write about it. I think Preeti has unfortunately... Oh, Preeti is there. I thought you unfortunately were thrown out of the network issue. But so I find that knowingly or unknowingly, because I had big argumentations before I started this project here with my peer group and seniors, some of them, that this work is not important. I mean, if you want to document their architecture. Why to document their lives? And I'm like, if anyone is interested in Shamini's work, they will find out, but they will not be able to find out how Shamini could really juggle through to find this work. And the fact that the younger generation, men, women, and our generation men, have to accept that we can practice, we can teach, we can do research. And I think for me, it is bigger service to men and boys in the society, even though I am doing it for girls and women. I think we all have to do this work and go beyond oneself. So every change we think that we again comes back to the mother and the woman, that we have to be the change makers. Because see, patriarchy and the men thing is so normal that we don't even find problem in it. I'll give very simple example and then hand it over to Shamini, because you also have to close the session. There was once in one university when I was and Madhvi were teaching together, by the way, but we had an urban design studio. If in that studio, all the 4 faculty members are men, no problem. Nobody questions them, right? I mean, you are in academics. It happened only one time when I was teaching there as a professor. we were all 4 women in urban design studio on one side, and on the other side, there was a gender balance. Not only did all the men and the director laughed about, oh no, all 4 women as urban design studio coordinator, how will they manage? They will, they will fight. It was just a joke, but that they will fight with each other. They will, like this. And to me, the worst was even women laughed about it.
Yeah.
I will stop here because we can go on and on about these stories. That's the whole idea. Shamini, over to you, because I still need to ask last
Preeti,
question.
yeah, I think Preeti was talking more about the gap in institutions where the politics come in play and how we as women actually respond to this.
Yeah.
So Preeti, my take is that you are where you are because people want you to be there.
Yeah.
You are not there and fighting for being there so that you make your life miserable and other people's life miserable. The moment you come to a point where you feel you cannot take that political gap, or you can't bridge that gap, or you can't overcome, or you can't be strong about what is right and what is wrong, I think one must refrain from trying to be within the institution, because the idea of being in an institution is to work together.
Yeah.
So we are not, see, politics is not for everybody. And
True.
there are women who play politics also, and even at a very, very high level. But you have to be that way. You have to, you have to be hardwired that way. So I guess many of us are not, because as Mansi said, you want to take peace back home. But my question is that I'm there because I'm respected. I want the respect, and I respect whoever I'm working with, and I am there because it's for actually grooming myself, evolving myself, understanding, learning, and working to within an institution that is not purely about you and your work. It is about the mission and vision of an institution. So if you're going to be playing politics and playing one against the other, I don't think it is a place for you or for me or for anyone. I think that is what I mean to say. I mean, that is my stand. So that is why I have gone, I have seen, and I've come back and I've worked, gone, seen, come back, worked, and gone, seen, and then got into the institution. So it has
Very well
been
put.
people calling you because they want you. And I think that is the way it should be, because,
I have a little difference of opinion, and pardon me for that, because the fact that woman decides not to engage in a political situation, the fact that women decided not to document and disseminate them for whatever reason, busy or not feeling importance about it. And like I was also demotivated by few seniors when I started this research. The fact that women choose to not talk about patriarchy, not talk about the life of women itself is a political decision. So I mean, unlike what Shamini was saying, I believe that we cannot escape the politics of the profession, the politics of life, even in I think everybody is political.
That is different.
In organization, when you are having this kind of dynamics, we have to maneuver. Anyway, we talk about it. Preeti, we need a date from you. Anywhere from third week of October onwards.
What is right? You stand for what is right. If you can bridge the political bridge, it is great. And you should, if you are part of it. But if you cannot handle it, no.
Yes, absolutely. End of the day, we have to bring peace home. And the right is also very subjective for every one of us. And we need to respect ourselves and people around in an organization. That brings me to the last question. And it's a message from you, Shamini, to the younger generation. No gender, restriction to the message. Why they should join architecture and what kind of simple behavioral change they should bring on board, so that more women are encouraged to be in the profession. I know we are already seeing a change in last 3 decades when we started working. Over to you.
So, I mean, why they should join architecture is a big question, because that is not something where I can tell somebody you should join architecture. I think there has to be, something in them that draws them into this profession. And I would say, please understand what it does and what it could do to you, before you actually take it on as your a professional, decision. Because if you do, and it is one of the most enjoyable professions that, design is one of the most profound professions that one can be involved with. But you have to have an aptitude for that. Okay, if I say that you have got into the profession of architecture, I would say one of the key things that a student must do is to observe. Because right through 5 years, we are talking about organization of space, we're talking about space, we're talking of form, we're talking of structure, we're talking a lot of things, but we are not talking of observation. And I think that is additional to all this. This is the key that one has to start developing. How to observe, how to listen to people, talk to people for whom you are actually designing, and question. So observation and curiosity is something that should never die. And that is what I would really tell the young generation to be totally clued into. So yes, not too much of Gyan now.
Yes, of course. It has to be short and sweet for the younger generation, especially with their attention time span. That brings me to the end of questions from my side. I hope it was not too much for you, and I completely enjoyed it, but this is also a time. If you have any question for me, very short question, then I can take it up. Otherwise, I'll do the vote of thanks.
I think we can do the vote of thanks. This is a
okay. Yes, as you wish. As you wish. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shamini, for this wonderful conversation. Though the word architect itself and the profession is genderless or neutral, as we may call it, and the issue of being woman or men in the profession should not arise at all. And it is my hope, to be honest, to live a day when we don't have to discuss about being woman in the profession and talk about gender at all. There is a profession, there are a lot of problems in the built environment out there, and we have to do something. To reach to that stage, this conversation, personally, I feel is absolutely important and is a small step towards when we don't talk about gender or women per se, and we just focus on the profession. And the disclaimer that having more women, and very rightfully came out from the conversation with Shamini, that having more women may not engender the profession and the practice, and also may not really bring much change. And definitely, I personally also do not wish to live a day when all the leading architects are women and so on and so forth. It's just a hypothetical question. But the more I am interacting to these emphatic, enlightened women like Shamini, I am realizing the deep contribution you all are making in not only engendering actually, but also delimiting the very definition architecture is looked at, redefining the way it should be practiced, whether in education, in research, or in practice, and the very diversification women have gotten into, and actually broken the very idea that women are doing interior designing most of the time. Thank you so much once again, Shamini, for this enlightening
interaction. Thank you, Mansi. It's been such a pleasure.
May you remain inspiration, and please keep us posted about your well-being and what you are doing. Something interesting, we would love to hear from you. Out here, we are actually trying to discipline ourselves as masterclass, and Saturdays we are booking ourselves for these interactions. Stay tuned with us. Thank you so much. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Mansi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.